Today we're going to be talking about remote and hybrid work with Harvard Extension instructor Carmine Gabaldi and Harvard Division of Continuing Education's Chief of Staff Pamela Landis. Remote work is something many of us have become familiar with over the past year and a half, but even before workers were forced into their home offices by the COVID-19 pandemic, virtual teams were on the rise. In an increasingly global society, the ability to work remotely means more options and more flexibility for both employees and managers. And Harvard DCE is a global community, encompassing the extension school, professional development programs, and summer school. We serve learners from all backgrounds and walks of life from nearly every country on the planet. So remote work and distance learning are likely not new for our students, but there's always a question of how to do it better. How to ensure better communication and collaboration, and how to foster a high-functioning team in a virtual or hybrid environment. There are also questions of how working remotely can affect equity and advancement in the workplace. We're going to answer these questions for you today. But first, a couple of points of housekeeping. We're going to be opening up the discussion for audience Q&A toward the end. Please submit your questions in the chat and please try to keep them related to the topics at hand. Any questions regarding enrollment or courses can be directed to our wonderful enrollment services team. We'll drop a link to their contact page in the comments after the event. Also on October 20th, we're going to be hosting a webinar on how to register for spring courses. We'll post a link to sign up for that event in the comments as well. And toward the end of this week, we're going to post a version of this video with accessible captions to our YouTube channel and blog, along with a transcript for anyone who can't stay the full hour or requires a more accessible version of the event. We'll share that right here on our Facebook page as well. Okay, Kristen, are we ready for introductions yet?
We are almost ready. I know we are waiting for one more person to join us, Dr. Carmine.
Yep. Yes, we are waiting on a key person for this event. I'll start by introducing my co-host, Kristen Pope. She is the social media manager here at DCE. And then behind the scenes, who is not on video right now, is our Crystal Holland, the DCE marketing assistant. She is wonderful at coordinating things, and she is going to be fielding questions for the Q&A at the end as well. We also have Pamela Landis, the DCE Chief of Staff, and we are working on getting hooked up to Zoom right now. Dr. Carmine Gabaldi, an instructor of management and industrial organizational psychology at Harvard Extension School.
He's coming. He's on his way, and we want him to be here.
We want him to be here. We want him to be here. So the first question I'm going to kick to you, Crystal, and I think that Pamela will be able to speak to this. Should we just dive in?
We can get started, and then we'll pull Carmine along.
That sounds good.
Yes. All right. So and I think this is, you know what, this is phenomenal for you, for your institutional knowledge, DCE knowledge, and from the practical standpoint. You know, we want to know, and people have reached out to ask about this, what have you learned about remote work in the pandemic? And tell us about your experiences within DCE.
Sure. Thanks, Kristen. So it has definitely been an interesting time. I actually joined DCE in the middle of the pandemic. So I started as a remote employee and hadn't met any of my colleagues at all, had to start doing everything on Zoom, all of my meetings, all of my meet and greets. And the one thing that I can say is it was actually a success. You know, we had come so far, I think, from when the pandemic first hit last March to when I actually joined, that I was able to create a sense of community with my colleagues. We were able to connect. I was really able to learn about Harvard and about DCE. And I really was able to feel like I was part of the team. And I think a lot of that has to do with everything that we had learned, our comfort with the technology that supported us. So, you know, what have we learned about working remotely during the pandemic? It's that we can do it. and we can still be productive, and we can still be successful, and we can still deliver results and create relationships and community. Might not be the same, but it can be done.
So encouraging. Like you just gave us the good rah-rah cheerlead on, like we can do this. I mean, what better message to say than we can do this? This is possible. And what great experience you have, Pamela, because this has been literally your experience to come in as a remote employee. And, you know, for the folks that have a lot of trepidation and a lot of concern about it, like, I feel like you just put us all at ease. It's possible.
It's possible. It is possible.
Yeah, and the topic is really relevant to DCE too. You know, a lot of schools pivoted really quickly to online, and I know we're not talking about school right now, but a lot of schools pivoted really quickly to online in the beginning of the pandemic and had to throw these programs together. And we were in a relatively good position because we've been doing this for so long. And so I think it's, you know, it's always a relevant topic for our audience, and not all of our employees have firsthand experience with it as well. Wonderful.
Great.
Excellent. Rebecca, I'll kick it over to you.
Okay. So Pamela, do you have any feeling for whether remote or hybrid work is likely to become permanent in offices across the country or world?
Definitely. You know, I think that remote work is here to stay, and in a very different way than it was before the pandemic hit. You know, before the pandemic, it was definitely individual based, looking for every employee or individual had to come and request their flex work based on their own personal situation. And it usually was based on a situation, right? There was a reason why that they had to be remote or part-time or flex. And I think where we're moving now is that this is here to stay. And it's not just based on a specific reason. That everybody has learned that working remotely has given them so much back in their own lives, and people are demanding it now. People are requiring it. People have learned that this is actually beneficial. It's really beneficial to our health. So I think remote work is here to stay. And what I'm seeing, and especially within DCE, is that companies are proactively engaging in it. They're setting up remote work schedules. They're telling their employees to work, not fully remote, but to do a hybrid work schedule. So that includes 2 or 3 days in the office, 2 or 3 days at home. And that way you can find the balance. We can preserve everything that we've learned during the pandemic, but we can also return to all the benefits that we got from being together in person in the office. But what I'm seeing are employees really supporting it, really engaging with it, and encouraging their employees to look at a hybrid schedule. So I think we're definitely here to stay, and it's definitely a changing workplace.
Pamela, you jumped right into our next question, and that is, what are the benefits of the hybrid workplace for the organization and the workers? And then separately, what are the drawbacks?
Right, absolutely. Well, I think everybody would say the benefits of being at home a little bit more is not having the commute that people have, is it's 2 hours back in the day. It's not the stress of racing into the office. For those people who have children, it's spending a little bit more time with their kids in the mornings or in the afternoons. It's really just being comfortable and not kind of in that hustle and bustle. I've heard so many people talk about how they've increase their exercise regimen because they have that extra time, that maybe they're eating healthier because they're home with their kitchen right there next to them. So I think in those ways, people have found some self-care that has come out of being home, a little bit slower pace. So I think all of those things are truly beneficial. And I've heard a lot about productivity, and I've experienced it too myself, that when I'm home and I'm just focused and there's no distractions and nobody coming into my office, that I can get a lot of work done. So what do I think some of the drawbacks are, though, and that we're seeing? I mean, human nature is to connect with people, is to be with people. There's a lot of collaboration. There's whiteboarding that can happen. And yes, there's technology to support that, but there's really nothing like someone walking into your office to say hi, to check in on how your day was. I mean, we spend a majority of our waking hours in our working environment, and relationships and friendships and connection and the human interaction is really, really critical. And just the little conversations that might happen in the hallway, as you're walking to the restroom, as you're walking to the water cooler, being able to have lunch with somebody, these are conversations that are really, really important and critical to self-fulfillment, for productivity, the collaboration, the sense of community. So I think those are some of the things that we don't get with working at home, which is why you can find a balance, between the two. So I think those are some of the, kind of pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. We've all been feeling those. Sure everyone can relate. And I don't want to put I don't want to put too much pressure on you here, Pamela, sorry. And we'll circle back. I understand that Carmine is attempting to dial in right now, but can you speak at all to how can employees manage any persisting mental and emotional needs of living through a pandemic?
Sure, and we definitely know there are long lasting and lingering effects of it. I think the biggest thing is to be kind to yourself and be forgiving to yourself. We're all so hard on ourselves. We have such high expectations that I think that's one of the most important things. And really focusing on self-care and well-being, and taking care of yourself. That's really important. And knowing that you're not in it alone. We all have different reactions to it, different levels of anxiety, different levels of stress as it comes to it. And that's okay, right? So it's really though about taking care of yourself, reaching out for help. There are so many resources that are out there, whether you're in school and you're a student or you're an employee working at a company. There are so many different programs to support you. So it's really important that people are forgiving, they take care of themselves, and they really focus on their well-being and remembering that they're not alone in this.
That was so gentle and human, Pamela. And that's so important when we're in a place where we can't connect, right? Like to still remain human and not just like the pictures behind the Zoom camera, but like reminding ourselves like you are human and we have to interact with humans even in a hybrid world. So I love that. So simple, but so powerful. What kind of processes can leaders put into place to, facilitate addressing these types of needs?
Mm-hmm. I think that what we need to do is really create the space for employees to take care of themselves, to know that they're supported, create an environment where people feel comfortable, coming forward and being transparent about how they might be feeling. If they're really struggling to come into the office one day, like that's okay, and to talk about it. And also as employers to provide the resources that people need. So what type of well-being resources do you need? Is an outlet to talk to someone? Is it the reminder that yoga might be important, or going to take a walk for the day? I think it's us providing those tools and also setting the standards and making sure that those boundaries are really set for our employees between home and work, and not having that expectation that you need to be on and you need to be working all of the time. And how do we use the tools that we have to really help us do that? But I think as employers, it's about creating the environment for people to feel kind of safe and balanced, and the tools that people need in order to do that and build those boundaries.
Awesome.
How can employees have productive conversations with managers about their needs with regard to working remotely and returning to the office?
Yeah, so I think that kind of follows on what we were just talking about. As an environment, as a company, or as employers, it's setting that stage to let people know that they're supported, that they feel safe, that we're empathetic, not so much sympathetic, yes, but empathetic, right? And understanding, and we're supportive. And so it's really about the environment that you create so that employees can feel comfortable having those conversations and coming forward and knowing that they are supported and that we really do have the best interest of employees at mind, because at the end of the day, healthy, happy employees are much more productive, and that's what we've learned. And so it's really important that we do that. One of the things that we're focused on too is making sure that our managers are trained and that they have the resources that they need. So not just letting managers have to figure it all out for themselves, but how do we help those managers to understand different situations in the workplace, how to respond to it, what are the proper protocols or policies that are in place, so that we can help the managers who can then help their employees.
Again, jumping right into our next question, Pamela. You're on a roll, but this is phenomenal. It's an excellent conversation. So we can't wait to get into the questions that we know are coming. And again, please submit your questions into the comments on our Extension Facebook Live page, because Pamela is giving us these are gems. You're dropping gems. So, to that point, managers having what they need, leaders implementing policies. How then do we create a hybrid flex work policy through the equity lens so that it benefits everybody at every level?
Right. So equity has been a very, very interesting word, because by nature of who we all are, we're all so different that equity in and of itself is very hard to achieve. What we've really focused on is equity in the process for what we've been doing. So it's that as we evaluate different requests and different needs that come forward, we're using the same lens to look at those requests and how people, different situations, right? But we know that there's equity differences for those people who might live in the city and take public transportation to work, right? And that they don't even have a car, versus those people who might live in the suburbs and they drive their car to work, right? There are inherent differences in that. And so how do we look at the process for evaluating these requests and making sure that the process is equitable, that we're looking at it? And that's where also really understanding different situations and employees really being transparent with us so we can have a conversation about it, really understand what those needs are, where are those needs stemming from. And that's how we've been approaching it. It's really making sure that the process that we evaluate all of these are equitable. I'm not sure if that gets at the question that you asked, sorry.
Well, and if you want, Pamela, no pressure, but if you want, could you give us an example of maybe how you have had to address it? One scenario to another scenario, or maybe it's not that linear, but maybe some kind of an example for the approach towards it.
Right. So from an approach standpoint, without getting into specifics of people, like one of the things that we did, so we set a schedule, a hybrid schedule for all employees, which was 2 days in the office, 3 days remote. Of course, you could come into the office as many days as you wanted. And what we said is, if that doesn't work for you and 2 days in the office is too much and you'd like to request something different, there's an exception process and absolutely request it. So we had a lot of people request an exception to that. And instead of looking at them each one off, what we did is we collected all of them with all of the reasons, and then we evaluated all of the reasons together. So we kind of could group them into the different reasons that people had. And then we could then look at them in an equitable fashion. So if there was a group of issues tied to the commute, tied to children being at home, and different things like that. So that's how we created an equitable process as we looked at them. And we put them all through that same lens and that same framework as we looked to those requests.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think that one maybe good side effect from this pandemic, I think that people are getting a little bit better at being vulnerable and talking about their needs when it comes to their working environment and talking those things out with their manager. So I'm glad that process has gone well and you guys have found a way to look at that through the equity lens.
Yeah, absolutely. And we found too that one of the hardest things about coming back to the office has been kind of the unknown. You know, it's been a long time since we've been in the office. It's been a long time since we've commuted. It's been a long time since we've had to get dressed, you know, out of our sweatpants and come into the office. And what we're hearing is once people do it, you know, once or twice, they're comfortable again. It's like rebuilding that muscle, you know, that we had about how to do it. And I know my first day back in the office, I came home, I was exhausted. It was a long day. You know, but now like I've rebuilt that muscle and it's and I'm smiling at the end of the day. I'm not so tired.
Yeah, the social interaction has definitely been a lot to get used to again for me, I'm sure for a lot of people. So kind of in a similar vein, you know, we're talking about all the different reasons why people might need a hybrid or flexible situation, all kinds of reasons. People might be caretakers, parents, people might have accessibility issues that just makes it much easier for them to work from their home office. And so, you know, a couple of questions. Are workers who choose remote or hybrid work less likely to receive promotions than those who get into the office? And I think this was mainly a question for Carmine because he's done some research into that. So if we want to hold off on touching on that for a second, that's fine. But then, you know, if so, how can workers stay engaged and ensure that they move ahead while maintaining a flexible schedule?
Right, absolutely. And there is so much research behind this, and Carmine definitely can speak to it more. You know, from my lens and where I sit, I know all of the research that has existed in the past, and that is a very real experience that people have, and it really does happen. I think as we move forward, tides are turning. Things are going to change as we're really engaging in this hybrid workplace where you have people remote, you have people in the office, right? It's really kind of across the board now for everybody. So I think that you're going to see, you know, everybody is remote at some point. Everybody is in person at another point. But in addition, with this pandemic, the tools that it has provided us, you know, before you were always only on the phone with somebody, right? We weren't Zooming. Zooming in wasn't a, you know, big thing. And now, right, you're seeing people, you're interacting with them, you are face to face with people. I think that makes a really big difference as we move forward. And we are so focused as an organization and different organizations as making sure our hybrid meetings go well, that we know we'll have people at home, we know we'll have people in the office. So how do we make sure we are all connected and we are all in the room together? So I think moving forward, we're setting the stage for that to start changing.
Wonderful. So we just received word that Dr. Gabaldi is not going to be joining us today. Pamela, I have to say you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much.
And I have to talk after this.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect with Dr. Gabaldi later this week, and I will we'll do a blog post, and I'll try to incorporate his information. So we'll try to fill in some not gaps. I don't think there were any gaps, but we'll try to include his information in the blog post. So really sorry for anyone who was looking forward to that. Pamela, are you up for taking some audience questions?
Sure.
Crystal, do we have any that came in?
I'm also taking a look at them too. so I can facilitate and field some of these. But Pamela, excellent job. I mean, this was really great. And I want you to know, yeah, people in the comments are saying this was excellent, great questions, great answers. So you are giving a lot of valuable, helpful information to leaders and to people on the receiving end of these decisions and policies. So excellent job.
Wonderful, wonderful. Even without Carmine.
Yes, this is awesome. This is awesome. Okay, so you know what, I'm just gonna jump in. Let's see, a question I see here is, during the pandemic and while I was working remotely, I felt that I was working more than when I was in my office. I couldn't disconnect. I worked even on weekends. How can I change this toxic habit? That's a great question.
And that really is one of the challenges of working from home, is learning how to set those boundaries. You know, one of the things that I had to do for myself in my house is I started working at my desk, that same desk that I paid my bills at, the same desk that I did all my children's forms at, and my online shopping. And I started there, and it was really interesting. My kids said to me, I don't know when you're working and when you're not working. And I don't know when I can interrupt you and when I can't interrupt you. And I was kind of in the middle of my house. So I carved out a separate space, you know, moved some things around, bought an inexpensive desk, and I created a separate workspace for myself so that I wasn't doing it all in the same place, the same desk. So when I got up in the morning, I go down to my basement, which is where my desk is, and I sit at my work desk. And when I am done with my work desk, I leave at the end of the day. And that's been really important for myself, is setting up a space. So I'm creating that same kind of routine where I get up, I go to work, and I leave work. So that's really important. There are also a lot of tools that you can use to help you. You know, we use Slack here at DCE, and you can set your working hours when you're on there. You can set when you're away on there. You can set it to do not disturb. So at the end of the day, you can actually turn it off. So you can't get those messages, and you can turn it off so you can't get them on your phone. So there's a lot of discipline that has to go into it, but it's really important to set those boundaries for yourself and make sure you are getting up from your desk and you are taking a walk and letting people know your working hours, and that is okay.
Those are great boundaries, great practical things that you can do. Really appreciate, Pamela, the personal, you know, the personal example of how you had to do it on your own and in your own home. So excellent question, great answer. We have another question here. This is a really good one. And I think she's in the best place to ask this question and get her answer. So what are some of the things that you can do to upskill while you work remote? It's hard to know what my coworkers are doing in this area. I've looked at low-cost training for Excel. I think she's speaking about Microsoft Excel, etc.
That is, we are in a great place to talk about that. You know, so as we know at the Division of Continuing Education, we have the Extension School, which are full semester courses that you can take for credit or not for credit. But we also have professional development programs, and those are short programs. Those are, you know, 2 to 4 day programs that you can take. We might even have some shorter ones than that. So I would say really look for professional development programs. That's really the place where you can focus on upskilling and taking skills like, how do I use social media, or how do I improve upon my Excel skills? You know, so it doesn't have to be a long semester based class. There are so many resources out there for short professional development programs, and something like an Excel program, you could probably find something really short on that. But definitely the upskilling and in this digital space that we're deeply in, it's really important and will make working so much easier. But definitely professional development programs are expanding.
100%. And we absolutely encourage you to go to our professional development website and check out what we have to offer. Go online to professional, I believe it's professional Harvard.
It's professional.dce.harvard.edu.
Thank you, Rebecca. Professional.dce.harvard.edu. Go to our website and check out what we have coming up. So excellent. This is a great question. Something that we've talked about on our own team. Is there a concern for future sense of company morale in working from home? What are suggestions to keep a positive, forward-thinking, unified attitude amongst the team? That's an awesome question.
It really is, because working remote can get lonely, and it is easy to feel disconnected and to just get caught up in your own routine, in your own life, and forget about the collective good. So it's really important for organizations to focus on that. And at DCE, we really are focused on it. We actually have a group of staff members, who really are focused on their committee, and they're focused on our fun and on our engagement. And it's not just fun, it's not just our Zoom cocktail parties that happen on Thursday evenings, but there's book clubs, there's movie clubs, there's talent shows. We did a virtual talent show this year that was phenomenal. So there are a lot of ways that companies can really promote that engagement, and employees and staff members can be proactive about that. Get a group of people together, create your own committee that's focused on that engagement. And we also try to do a lot from the administrative level, really trying to create those events that will engage people. And there are different learning opportunities, different seminars or webinars, different well-being activities that we share and we make sure employees are aware of. So it's really important, and this goes back to an earlier comment, human interaction is really important for our overall mental health. And it's easy to forget that as we hide behind our cameras, and our computers. So it's important to stay engaged, and it could be as little as doing a book club, or a movie club, something like that. But it is really important to get together with people and do more than just work together.
100%. 100%. I love when I go into Slack, all the little hashtags that pop up. We have Ministry of Fun, and there's cooking groups, and all sorts of things based on life interests to promote human interaction. And you see people still coming together, and hopefully those things in the hybrid space, like not just in remote, those things continue.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's it, that these are some of the best practices that we've learned, and we need to be careful not to let them go. Right? They really are important. And just as a side note, I will tell you, one of my favorite Slack channels is the Pets of DCE. That's my affinity group.
That is, and for good reason, right? That's gonna be just a happy, funny group.
Right, just a happy place.
No, and we need those places. We need those places. So I want to share this. One of our viewers said, "Thank you for coordinating and delivering this great presentation. Very valuable information. Much appreciated." So this has been very, very helpful to folks. And yeah, Pamela, you've done a phenomenal job. And I won't belabor the point, but is there anything that you would like to leave us with? As I would say, as organizations are trying to figure this out, and granted, right, like I don't think there's like definitive answers. There is like the continual trying to figure it out, but anything you want to leave about like, the path forward?
I think that for both, employees and the employer, I think it's really important that we recognize we are all learning, right? There is no roadmap built for us for this. We were thrust into it really fast. and that we can all agree this is a good thing. Right? It's a good thing, but we have to learn. So we have to recognize that we are going to make mistakes, right? On both sides, right? That employers are going to put in a policy or do something that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't, while we thought it was going to work, it doesn't work. And the same thing from employees' standpoint, right? And the same thing from students' standpoint. It's really important to know that we're not going to get it right, but the decisions that we make are based on the information that we have in front of us, you know, and that we really need to trust and know that we are in this together, because we really are in this together. And it's important that everybody's voices are heard. So speak up, communicate, you know, talk to your manager, talk to your colleagues, because everybody's voice makes a difference. And we will get there. We will figure this out.
Pamela, you have left us with hope.
Thank
I mean,
you.
my gosh, we need that, right? You have left us with hope and given a lot of encouragement, I think, and optimism for what's going on, what's happening. And, you know, I think a lot of people probably feel seen, you know, heard and seen, because there's so many different scenarios, so many different circumstances at play right now. And so this has been excellent. To all the folks who tuned in, thank you so much. If we did not get to your question, please know that we will moderate the comments. I saw a couple that just need some simple answers, and we will be sure to respond to the comments. But if you have questions that you didn't get answered and you want to submit them, or you didn't submit them and you want to, please do, and we will make sure that we get those to Pamela and Carmine and get some answers to you. So thank you all for tuning in. Rebecca, do you have any final words that you want to leave?
I don't, but when you said my name just now, I realized I never introduced myself. I'm Rebecca Baffin. I'm the digital content producer.
Thank you, Rebecca and Kristen, for facilitating this. And Crystal, it's a great conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
This really
Pamela.
was. Thank you,
Really
Pamela, for making yourself available. This is exactly what we need at this time. So thank you.
Absolutely. And everybody take care of yourself. Remember that.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Wonderful. Bye.
Bye-bye.